Welcome back to Solentha Stories. Let's fuel your day with some intense passion and non-stop excitement. Grab your gear, we're moving into the story now.
My husband left me for another woman. He took my own family to their wedding abroad. He texted me, "Don't be home when we get back. Once it's old, it's dead to me." They all returned and saw what I had done. Their smiles vanished. They looked at the empty land and asked each other one terrified question. I just watched from my car and smiled. "Don't be home when we get back. Once it's old, it's dead to me." That's what my husband texted me from Croatia. From his wedding. To another woman. With my entire family standing behind them in the photo, champagne glasses raised. I stared at that message for exactly 3 seconds. Then I looked up at the construction crew across the street, watching them demolish an old building floor by floor. Controlled demolition, they called it. And I knew exactly what I needed to do. They wanted me gone? Fine. But I'd make sure there was nothing left for them to come back to. The photo was still on my screen. I zoomed in, studying every detail like I was examining architectural blueprints. Samuel stood in the center wearing a tuxedo I'd never seen before. Expensive. Perfectly tailored. The kind of suit that costs $3,000 minimum. Next to him was Clara Ashford. 28 years old. Blonde hair in soft waves. White dress that probably came from some boutique in Boston that I'd walked past 100 times but never entered because I was too busy working. But it wasn't Samuel or Clara that made my hands tighten around the phone. It was everyone standing behind them. My mother Patricia wore lavender. Her favorite color. The same shade she'd worn to my wedding 12 years ago. She was beaming at the camera, champagne glass raised high, looking happier than I'd seen her look in years. Next to her stood my father Robert. He looked uncomfortable, sure, but he was there. Present. Participating. Not protesting. Not refusing. Just standing there like this was normal family behavior. My sister June held a bouquet. An actual bouquet. Like she was part of the wedding party. Like she hadn't spent the last year telling me I needed to be more supportive of Samuel's career. More understanding when he worked late. More flexible when he canceled our plans. And Marcus. My baby brother. The one I put through college when my parents couldn't afford it. The one I helped with rent for 6 months when he lost his job. The one who called me his hero at his graduation. He was grinning in that photo. Chilly grinning. Like attending my husband's wedding to another woman was just another fun family vacation. I sat there in my car outside the Meridian Tower construction site, phone in my lap, trying to process what I was seeing. Trying to make it make sense. But it didn't make sense. None of it made sense. Across the street, the demolition crew was working on a 1960s office building that had been condemned 6 months ago. I'd watched them start the teardown 3 days earlier. They weren't using explosives. This was surgical. Controlled. They removed windows first. Then interior walls. Then support beams. Floor by floor, section by section, the building was coming down in a carefully orchestrated collapse. The foreman stood near the perimeter fence, holding a tablet, monitoring every strike of the excavator. Nothing was random. Nothing was emotional. It was pure calculated precision. That's when the clarity hit me. Absolute. I opened my phone's photo gallery and started scrolling backwards. 12 years of marriage in digital form. Our wedding day. Samuel looking at his phone during the reception. Our 5th anniversary trip to Maine. Him disappearing for hours claiming he needed to take work calls. Last Christmas when he insisted we spend it apart because he needed space to think. Every vacation where he was physically present but mentally elsewhere. Every dinner where he checked his messages under the table. Every late night at the office that I'd believed without question. I'd been building our future while he'd been building an exit strategy. Samuel Vaughn. My husband of 12 years. Regional sales manager for a tech company. That's what he told people. That's what I told people. But regional sales apparently involved a lot of hotel rooms and very few actual sales reports. I'd never questioned it because I was too busy running my architecture firm. Too busy designing buildings and managing clients and working 80-hour weeks to notice that my husband was designing a completely different life. Clara Ashford worked in his office. Marketing coordinator. I'd met her once at a company holiday party 2 years ago. She'd seemed nice. Quiet. Forgettable. I remembered thinking she looked young. Too young to be taken seriously in a professional environment. Now I understood. She wasn't hired for her marketing skills. We never had children. Samuel always said the timing wasn't right. We should wait until the business was more stable. Until we had more money saved. Until we traveled more. Until. I'd believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because I thought we were partners building toward the same future. But he wasn't waiting for the right time with me. He was waiting for her. My phone buzzed again. A notification from Instagram. Samuel had posted the photo publicly. The caption read, "Starting our forever in paradise. Surrounded by the people who matter most." The people who matter most. I wasn't in that photo. I wasn't in Croatia. I wasn't anywhere in his new life. I was home. In Boston. Sitting in my car outside a construction site. Reviewing blueprints for the Meridian Tower. The biggest commercial project of my career. The project that would define my firm's reputation. The project I'd been pouring myself into for 9 months while my husband planned his wedding to someone else. The demolition crew across the street brought down another section of the building. The excavator's arms swung precisely, connecting with a load-bearing wall. The structure groaned, buckled, collapsed inward exactly as planned. I watched the dust rise and settle. Then I opened my text messages and typed, "Enjoy Croatia. I'll make sure everything's handled." Samuel would read that and think I was being supportive. Understanding. The way I'd always been. The way he trained me to be over 12 years of marriage. But I wasn't being supportive. I was being strategic. I scrolled through my contacts and found Nicole Ferrara. My attorney. The woman who'd helped me structure my LLC when I started my firm. The woman who'd insisted 5 years ago that Samuel sign a post-nuptial agreement when I expanded the business. The woman I'd kept on retainer even though Samuel thought it was paranoid. She answered on the second ring. "Hazel. What's wrong?" I didn't waste time with explanations. "How fast can we move?" There was a pause. Nicole was sharp. She didn't need details to understand tone. "How fast do you need?" I looked at the photo again. Calculated the timeline. They land in 9 days. Nicole's laugh was low and predatory. The sound of someone who'd built a career destroying unfaithful spouses in court. "Then let's build you a beautiful new life in 8. I hung up and sat there for another moment, watching the demolition crew pack up their equipment for the day. The building that had stood for 60 years was now just rubble and rebar. By tomorrow it would be hauled away. By next week the lot would be cleared and ready for something new. Controlled demolition. That's what they called it. And that's exactly what I was about to do. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and started writing. Lists. Timelines. Asset inventories. Everything we owned. Everything I owned technically. The house. The cars. The vacation condo in Vermont we'd visited twice. Bank accounts. Investment portfolios. Even the furniture. By 3 in the morning I had 17 pages of notes. By dawn I had a plan. I showered, dressed in my black suit, the one I wore for important client meetings, and drove to Nicole's office in downtown Boston. She texted me her availability at 6 a.m., which told me everything I needed to know about how seriously she was taking this. Her office was on the 14th floor of a glass building overlooking the harbor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Expensive art on the walls. The kind of space that screamed success and didn't apologize for it. Nicole was already there when I arrived, 2 cups of coffee waiting on her desk. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't offer sympathy or platitudes. Just slid a manila folder across the polished wood surface and said, "I filed at 7 this morning. Divorce petition. Grounds. Abandonment, adultery and breach of post-nuptial agreement." I opened the folder. The paperwork was extensive. Brutal in its precision. "We have evidence," Nicole continued, pulling out her tablet. "Credit card statements going back 18 months. Hotels. Restaurants. Jewelry purchases that never made it to you." She swiped through images. Receipts from places I'd never been. Charges on dates when Samuel told me he was working late. "There's more," she said, and her voice took on an edge I recognized. The tone she used when she was about to destroy someone in court. "Remember that laptop he left open last month? The one you mentioned when we had coffee?" I nodded. I'd been reviewing contracts one evening when Samuel's laptop chimed with a message notification. He was in the shower. The screen was unlocked. I'd glanced over, seen Clara's name, and made a decision I didn't fully understand at the time. I'd started forwarding myself emails. I went through everything you sent me, Nicole said. We have 18 months of correspondence between Samuel and Clara. Planning. Theming. And this, she turned the tablet toward me. An audio file. Timestamp from 6 weeks ago. She pressed play. Samuel's voice filled the office, tinny through the speakers but unmistakable. Don't worry, babe, once I get the money from the house we can leave sooner. She'll never know until it's too late. Clara's laugh. Light. Carefree. You're terrible. But I love it. I love you, Samuel said. This time next year we'll be in our place. She'll still be in that office working herself to death and we'll be living our actual lives. Nicole stopped the recording. I sat there staring at the tablet feeling nothing. Absolutely nothing. The words should have hurt. Should have made me angry. Should have done something. But I just felt cold. He'll be served tomorrow morning at his office, Nicole said. 9 a.m. sharp. I'm having a process server hand-deliver the papers in front of his colleagues. Including Clara. I looked up at her. Is that necessary? Nicole's smile was sharp. You're paying me to win, Hazel. Not to be nice. I signed the papers without reading them. Nicole had never steered me wrong. 5 years ago when I'd expanded my firm and brought her on retainer, she'd insisted Samuel sign a post-nuptial agreement. I'd resisted at first. It felt unromantic. Cynical. Like I was planning for failure. You're not planning for failure, Nicole had told me then. You're protecting what you've built. There's a difference. Samuel had signed it without reading. I remembered him sitting at the same desk, barely glancing at the document, scrolling through his phone while Nicole explained the terms. He'd seemed annoyed by the whole process. Impatient. Now I understood why. He'd already been planning his exit. The post-nup just made it more complicated. After signing, Nicole and I spent the next 3 hours going through finances. She had her assistant pull up every account, every asset, every line item from the past 12 years of our marriage. Joint checking account. My deposits totaled $673,000. Samuel's deposits totaled $3,400. I stared at that number for a long moment. $3,400. Over 12 years. Where did his salary go? I asked. Nicole pulled up his personal account statements. The ones he didn't know I had access to because I'd been listed as a secondary on the account when we first got married and he'd never removed me. Restaurants. Hotels. A recurring charge to a jewelry store in Cambridge. Monthly payments to a storage unit I'd never heard of. He's been building a separate life for at least 2 years, Nicole said. Maybe longer. The house was titled solely to my LLC. Purchased 3 years before we married as a business investment property. Samuel had never contributed to the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, or the renovations. Legally, he had no claim to it. The cars. Both registered to my business. Company vehicles. The Vermont condo. Purchased through the LLC. Samuel had never made a single payment. He owns nothing, Nicole said flatly. According to the post-nup, any assets purchased or maintained during the marriage using your business income remain solely yours. He signed away any claim to marital property beyond what he directly contributed. So the $3,400, I said, is all he's legally entitled to. I had Nicole liquidate our joint accounts that afternoon. Every dollar I'd deposited over 12 years. Moved to a new account in my name only. I left Samuel exactly $3,400. Fair is fair. When I got home that evening the house felt different. Not because of what was missing but because of what I now understood had never really been there. I walked through the rooms slowly, seeing everything with new eyes. The living room furniture I'd chosen and paid for. The kitchen appliances I'd researched and installed. The artwork on the walls from galleries I'd visited alone because Samuel was always too busy. His side of the closet was empty. He'd packed for Croatia but left everything else behind. His winter coats. His work clothes. His shoes lined up neatly on the rack I'd bought him 3 Christmases ago. He assumed he'd come back to it. That I'd still be here waiting. That this house, this life, would be his safety net while he figured out his new life with Clara. I started packing his belongings into boxes. Methodically. Without emotion. His clothes went into donation bags. His vintage movie poster collection. The one he claimed was worth thousands, got carefully rolled and packed. Let him come back for it if he wanted it that badly. But something told me he wouldn't. By day 2 the boxes were piled in the garage. I'd called Goodwill. They'd pick everything up on Friday. Mrs. Kowalski caught me loading the last bag into my car that afternoon. She was in her garden, pruning roses, but I knew she'd been watching. "Spring cleaning," she called, walking over. I forced a smile. "Something like that." She looked at the boxes, then at me. Her expression shifted. "Is everything okay with you and Samuel? I haven't seen him around lately." "He's traveling," I said. "Extended trip." Mrs. Kowalski nodded slowly, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. "Well, if you need anything." "I'm fine," I interrupted. "Really? Just busy with work." That evening, I saw her standing on her porch talking to Mr. Peterson from across the street. Both of them kept glancing toward my house. Let them wonder. Let them gossip. In a few days they'd have real news to discuss. Day 3 ended with me sitting alone in the living room, drinking wine from a bottle I'd bought last month for a dinner party we never had. Samuel had canceled at the last minute. "Work emergency," he'd said. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. Samuel had posted again. More photos from Croatia. Him and Clara on a sailboat. Sunset behind them. Her hand on his chest. His arm around her waist. My mother had commented, "Beautiful couple. So happy for you both." My sister June had tagged herself, "Best family vacation ever." #blessed. They were performing happiness. Broadcasting it. Making sure everyone saw. While I sat here in the house I'd bought, drinking wine I'd paid for, surrounded by furniture I'd chosen, systematically dismantling the life they assumed would be waiting when they returned. I didn't cry. I was done crying. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching demolition companies in the Boston area. Westwood Demo and Excavation had a 5-star rating and a waiting list 3 months long. I called them anyway. The man who answered sounded tired. "We're booked solid through January. If you want to leave your information." "I need a house demolished in 5 days," I said. "Full teardown. I'll pay double your rate." There was a pause. "Ma'am, permitting a loan takes 4 to 6 weeks. We can't just." "I'll have the permits by tomorrow afternoon." Another pause. Longer this time. "What's the address?" I gave it to him. Heard typing on the other end. "That's a historic property," he said. 1920s colonial. Beautiful structure from the listing photos. "You sure you want to tear it down?" "Positive." More typing. Then, "Let me talk to Jack. He'll call you back within the hour." Jack Morrison called me 43 minutes later. His voice was rough, weathered by decades of shouting over machinery. "My guy says you want a demo in 5 days with permits handled by tomorrow. That's not how this works." "It is if you want the job," I said. He laughed. Not amused. Just surprised. "Lady, I've been doing this for 30 years. Nobody gets permits that fast. Not even developers with city council connections." "I'm an architect," I told him. "I've designed half the commercial buildings going up in Boston right now. I know every planning commissioner by name. I know which ones owe me favors. The permits will be ready by 2 p.m. tomorrow." Silence. Then, "You're serious?" "Completely." Why the rush? I could have lied. Could have said I had buyers lined up or development plans ready. But something about Jack's directness made me answer honestly. "My husband married someone else last week while I was home working. Took my entire family to Croatia for the wedding. Now they're coming back expecting everything to be exactly as they left it." Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What time tomorrow works for you?" We met at the house at 10 the next morning. Day 4. Jack pulled up in a pickup truck that had seen better decades, climbed out wearing work boots and a flannel shirt that had more paint stains than original fabric. He walked the property slowly, studied the foundation, checked the roof line, examined the walls, took photos and measurements and notes on a clipboard that looked like it had survived multiple construction sites. "Solid structure," he said finally. "Great bones. You could renovate this, flip it for $3 million easy." "I don't want to renovate it." He looked at me. Really looked. Not the way men usually looked at me in business meetings. Assessing, calculating, trying to figure out angles. This was different. Like he was trying to understand something that didn't make logical sense. You know once it's gone, he said. No getting it back. I know. He nodded slowly. Wrote something on his clipboard. With expedited permits, we can start tomorrow morning. Demo takes about 8 hours for a house this size. Debris removal another day. You'll have an empty lot by Friday evening. How much? 47,000. That's with the rush job premium. I didn't hesitate. Done. Jack extended his hand. His grip was firm, calloused. I'll need those permits by 2 like you said. You'll have them. I spent the rest of day 4 making calls. Every favor I'd built up over 15 years in the Boston architecture community I called in. Planning commissioners I'd worked with on zoning appeals. Building inspectors who'd fast-tracked my projects. City officials I'd helped with pro bono designs for public spaces. By 1:30 I had every signature I needed. By 2 Jack had the permits in hand. I'll be damned, he said looking at the paperwork. You actually did it. I told you I would. He folded the permits, tucked them in his truck. We start at 6 a.m. You want to be here. Wouldn't miss it. After Jack left, I went back inside the house. I needed to finish clearing Samuel's home office. Most of his stuff was already boxed, but his filing cabinet remained. I opened the bottom drawer and found a folder tucked in the back. Manila. Unlabeled. Hidden behind tax returns from 6 years ago. Inside were loan applications. 4 of them. All denied. All dated 6 months ago. Applications for a second mortgage on the house. My house. The one owned by my LLC. I read through each one carefully. Samuel had listed himself as sole owner. Had forged my signature on the initial documentation. Had claimed the property was jointly owned and that I'd verbally agreed to the loan. All lies. The applications had been rejected because the title search showed the house belonged to my business, not to Samuel or to us jointly. But he'd tried. He'd actually tried to steal equity from my property to fund his exit. I found more in the folder. Printed emails between Samuel and Clara. Samuel, the loan got denied again. Her name is on everything. I don't know how to get around it. Clara, can't you just forge her signature on a sale agreement? Samuel, too risky. But don't worry, babe, once I get the money we can leave sooner. She'll never know until it's too late. Clara, you're sure she won't fight the divorce? Samuel, she won't. She's too busy with work to notice what's happening. By the time she realizes I'm serious, we'll be gone and she'll be stuck with the legal bills. I photographed every page. Sent them to Nicole. She called back within 2 minutes. Hazel. This is fraud. Attempted fraud at minimum. He forged your signature on legal documents. That's a felony. Add it to the divorce filing. I'm adding it to everything. This changes the whole case. He's not just a cheater. He's a criminal. I hung up and sat there in Samuel's office. The room I'd designed for him, the desk I'd bought him, the chair I'd assembled while he was out on one of his many business trips. He hadn't just been planning to leave me. He'd been planning to rob me. My phone rang. Emily. I almost didn't answer. But Emily had a way of knowing when something was wrong. If I ignored her, she'd show up at my door. I answered. Where are you? She said. No hello. No preamble. Home. I'm coming over. Emily, I'm fine. I saw the demolition permits posted on the city planning site. I saw your name on them. I'm coming over. Don't argue. She hung up. 20 minutes later, she was at my door with Thai food and wine. Emily Chin was my oldest friend. We'd met in architecture school, survived brutal professors and all-night design studios together. She'd been at my wedding. Had been the one person who'd quietly asked if I was sure about Samuel. I should have listened to her then. She pushed past me into the kitchen, set down the food, opened the wine without asking and poured 2 glasses. Talk, she said. So I told her everything. The photo. Croatia. My family. Clara. The demolition scheduled for tomorrow morning. Emily listened without interrupting. But her face shifted from concern to something else. Something close to fear. Hazel, she said finally. What are you doing? What I should have done years ago. You're tearing down your house. It's my house. I can do what I want with it. That's not. Emily stopped. Started again. I get why you're angry. I get it. But this feels extreme. This feels like you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 12 years. Emily set down her wine, reached across the table, took my hand. You're not a vindictive person. You're not cruel. This isn't you. Maybe it should be, I said quietly. Maybe if I'd been less understanding, less accommodating, less willing to believe every lie he told me, he wouldn't have thought he could do this. Or maybe, Emily said, her voice gentle, you would have left him years ago and saved yourself this pain. We sat in silence for a moment. Promise me something, Emily said. Promise me you won't regret this. I looked at her. At my friend who'd known me longer than Samuel had. Who'd watched me build my career and my marriage and had probably seen cracks I'd refused to acknowledge. I promise, I said. But after she left, I sat alone in the kitchen and wondered if I was lying. Day 5 arrived with cold clarity. I woke at 5, dressed in jeans and my favorite black jacket, made coffee and drove to the house. The Westwood crew was already there. 3 trucks. 6 workers. Equipment being unloaded with practiced efficiency. Jack saw me and walked over. Last chance, he said. Once we start, there's no stopping it. I looked at the house. At the windows I'd chosen. The door I'd painted. The porch where I'd sat countless evenings waiting for Samuel to come home. Start, I said. The machinery roared to life. Mrs. Kowalski appeared on her porch in a bathrobe, eyes wide. Other neighbors emerged. Mr. Peterson. The Johnsons. The retired couple from the corner who always waved but never spoke. Mrs. Kowalski rushed over. Hazel. What's happening? I smiled. Took a sip of coffee. Renovation. Full demo. Starting fresh. But where will you live? I've made arrangements. The wrecking ball swung. Connected with the east wall. The wall where Samuel had hung his vintage movie posters. The impact was deafening. The wall crumbled. And I felt nothing. By noon the house was rubble. By 3 the second floor was dust. By sunset, there was nothing left but broken pieces scattered across the lot like the remains of a life I no longer recognized. I stood there watching until the crew packed up their equipment and Jack approached, wiping his hands on his jeans. You okay? He asked. I didn't know how to answer. I felt empty. Lighter. Free. Terrified. All of it at once. Yeah, I finally said. I think I am. Jack nodded, didn't push. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 to haul the debris. Should have the lot cleared by evening. I thanked him and watched his truck disappear down the street. Then I stood alone in the growing darkness, staring at what used to be my home. Day 6 arrived with gray skies and the rumble of debris removal trucks. I was there at dawn again. Couldn't stay away. Needed to see every piece of it disappear. The crew worked with mechanical efficiency. Front-end loaders scooped up chunks of what used to be walls and floors and ceilings. Dump trucks backed up, filled, drove away. Again and again. Each load carrying away another piece of 12 years. I watched the kitchen island get loaded into a truck. The marble countertops I'd chosen from a supplier in Cambridge. The custom cabinets I'd designed myself. We'd eaten our first meal in this house at that island. Take-out Chinese because we were too exhausted from moving to cook. Samuel had toasted with a beer bottle. To our future, he'd said. I wondered if he'd already been planning his exit then. Or if that came later. The mantle went next. I'd hung our wedding photo there for 6 years before taking it down. I told myself it needed reframing. The truth was I couldn't look at his smile anymore without wondering if it had ever been real. The deck we'd built 3 summers ago. The one where we were supposed to grow old together, drinking coffee and watching sunsets, was broken into pieces and hauled away by 11. By afternoon the lot was nearly clear. Just dirt and scattered debris. The crew brought in a grader, leveled everything, smoothed it out. By evening it was done. I stood at the curb, staring at empty space where a $2 million home had existed 24 hours ago. A woman jogged past. Stopped. Looked at the lot, then at the neighboring houses, then back at the lot. Didn't there used to be a house here? She asked. I turned to her, kept my expression neutral. Must be thinking of a different street. She frowned, clearly confused. I could have sworn. She shook her head. Never mind. Sorry. She jogged on. I watched her go and felt something close to satisfaction. It was working. I was erasing us. My phone rang. June's name flashed across the screen. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Hazel. Her voice was bright, cheerful, completely oblivious to what she'd participated in. We're having the best time. Croatia is gorgeous. You should see the beaches, the food is incredible, and the wedding was just... I got Samuel's text, I interrupted. Silence. Then, oh. That. Her tone shifted immediately. Less bright. More defensive. Look, she continued. We didn't want to get involved in your marriage problems, but Samuel said you two had been over for a while. He said you knew about Clara. That you'd both agreed to. I agreed to nothing, I said. My voice came out colder than I intended. He's lying to you. He's lying to all of you. June sighed. That exasperated sound she always made when she thought I was being difficult. You always do this, Hazel. Always assume everyone's against you. But Samuel loves you. He needs something different now. Someone who makes him happy. The words landed like a physical blow. Someone who makes him happy? I repeated slowly. I made him happy for 12 years, June. I put you through college when Mom and Dad couldn't afford it. I helped them with house payments when Dad lost his job. I've held this family together while all of you. We have to go, she cut me off. The reception's starting. We'll talk when we get back, okay? The line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone, processing what had just happened. They weren't just attending his wedding. They were defending him. They'd chosen his side. All of them. I called Nicole. I need to move faster, I told her. They land in 3 days. Already on it, she said. Come to my office tomorrow. I have something you need to see. I met Nicole at her office on day 7. The skyline outside her windows was gray with clouds threatening rain. She had a folder waiting. Thicker than the others. I did some digging on Clara Ashford, Nicole said, sliding it across her desk. Turns out your husband has interesting taste in women. I opened the folder. Financial records. Background checks. Family information. Clara Ashford wasn't just some 28-year-old marketing coordinator living paycheck to paycheck. He came from money. Serious money. Her father, Richard Ashford, owned Ashford Auto Group, a chain of luxury car dealerships across Massachusetts. 17 locations. Revenue in the hundreds of millions. Clara's trust fund was worth over $2 million. She doesn't need Samuel's money, Nicole said. But Samuel definitely needs hers. She flipped to another section. Bank statements showing wire transfers from Clara to Samuel over the past year. $10,000 in March. $15,000 in June. $25,000 in September. $50,000 total. What was he telling her? I asked. Nicole pulled up emails she'd subpoenaed from his account. Samuel to Clara. The house is almost paid off. Once the divorce is final, I'll have access to the equity. We can buy that condo in Miami you liked. Clara to Samuel. How much equity are we talking? Samuel. At least $1 million. Maybe more. She doesn't pay attention to finances. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her. I read it 3 times. He's been conning her, I said slowly. Nicole nodded. Probably the same way he tried to con you. Except Clara's family has money and connections. Her father's lawyers are already involved. They had her sign a prenup before the wedding. Samuel gets nothing if the marriage ends. Does he know that? I don't think so. Based on these emails, he thinks he's marrying into wealth. He has no idea he just signed away any claim to her trust fund. I leaned back in my chair processing. So he's not just a cheater, I said. He's a con artist. A bad one, Nicole agreed. But yes. Suddenly my revenge felt bigger than just me. This wasn't just about what he'd done to me. It was about stopping him from doing this to someone else. Even if that someone else was Clara. What do we do with this? I asked. Nicole smiled. We add it to the divorce filing. Show the pattern of financial manipulation. Show that he forged your signature trying to access equity. Show that he's currently attempting to defraud another woman. It makes our case airtight. I left Nicole's office feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Purpose. That evening, alone in my new apartment, the penthouse I'd rented last week in Back Bay with skyline views and no memories, I sat down at my desk and pulled out a sheet of paper. I started writing. Dear Mom. The words came slowly at first. Then faster. Everything I'd never said. Everything I'd kept buried for 12 years. For my entire life, really. How her constant criticism made me feel like I was never good enough. Never smart enough. Never feminine enough. How she always took Samuel's side in every argument, telling me I worked too much, wasn't warm enough, didn't know how to keep a man happy. How she chose to attend his wedding to another woman while her own daughter was falling apart. I wrote about the loneliness. About burying myself in work because home stopped feeling like home years ago. About trying to fix something that Samuel had already decided was broken. About how I kept trying to earn her approval and never understanding why it was always just out of reach. I wrote until my hand cramped. Until the words blurred. Until there was nothing left to say. Then I folded the letter carefully, slid it into an envelope and wrote, Patricia Monroe, across the front. I held it for a long moment. Then I tucked it into my desk drawer. Maybe someday I'd send it. Maybe I'd keep it as a reminder that some things are better left unsaid. Some bridges are better burned than crossed. I poured wine and stood at my window looking out at the city lights. In 2 days they'd land at Logan Airport. In 2 days, they'd drive to the house expecting everything to be exactly as they left it. In 2 days they'd see what I'd done. And I'd be watching. Day 8 began with paperwork. I met Tom Brennan at a coffee shop in Cambridge, halfway between his office and mine. The kind of place with exposed brick and overpriced lattes that Samuel always complained about. Tom was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a leather portfolio and reading glasses perched on his nose. He was in his 50s, with kind eyes and hands roughened by decades of construction work. The kind of man who'd built things his entire life and understood the weight of what gets torn down. He stood when he saw me, shook my hand firmly. Hazel. Good to see you. We sat. He opened the portfolio, pulled out the deed and transfer documents. This is a hell of a lot, he said, reviewing the papers one more time. Prime location. Great zoning. I'm still surprised you're selling. Property like this doesn't come available often. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup. The heat felt grounding. Time for a change, I said simply. Tom nodded, didn't push. He signed where his attorney had flagged, then slid the documents across the table. I signed my name on 6 different pages. Witnessed. Notarized. Final. Just like that, $3.2 million transferred into my business account. Tom shook my hand again. Good doing business with you. And if you ever need architectural work for future developments, give me a call. I've seen your designs. You're good. I will, I said. Thank you. He gathered his papers, stood, paused. I hope whatever you're starting fresh from, I hope it's worth it. I watched him leave, then sat alone at that table for another 20 minutes, staring at the signed documents in front of me. The house was gone. The money was mine. Samuel and my family were returning tomorrow. There was no going back now. I drove to the parking garage where I'd left my car and sat behind the wheel for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing slowly. Deliberately. I wasn't scared. But I wasn't entirely sure I was okay either. The penthouse I'd rented last week was in Back Bay. 17th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 2 bedrooms even though I only needed one. Modern kitchen with appliances I'd probably never use. The kind of place I'd always wanted but never suggested to Samuel because he thought downtown living was too flashy and not practical. I'd moved in 3 days ago with the few things I'd taken from the house. My clothes. My laptop. My favorite chair from the home office. Everything else was new. Furniture I'd ordered online and had assembled by professionals. Dishes I'd never eaten off of. Towels that still had tags. It was beautiful. It was also completely empty of anything that felt like me. I was unpacking the last box, books mostly, when my doorbell rang. Emily stood in the hallway holding 2 bottles of wine and an expression that said she was prepared to stage an intervention. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the apartment. She set the wine on the kitchen counter, surveyed the space with the critical eye of someone who'd known me for 15 years. Nice place, she said. Sterile. But nice. I just moved in. 3 days ago. You've had time to make it feel like home. She opened one of the wine bottles without asking, poured 2 glasses, handed me one. Except you're not trying to make it feel like home. You're hiding. I took the wine. I'm not hiding. You're isolating, Emily said, settling onto my couch. You're not answering my texts. You're not coming to yoga. You've canceled lunch 3 times. You're disappearing, Hazel. I sat beside her, stared out at the city lights beginning to glow in the dusk. I'm fine. Just busy. Busy demolishing your life? She turned to look at me. Not accusing. Just sad. You used to talk to me. About everything. Now you're like, I don't know. Like you're somewhere else. Like you've already left and your body just hasn't caught up yet. I took a long drink of wine. I am somewhere else, I said quietly. The person I was. The one who believed in love and family and partnership. She's gone. She died when that photo came through. This, I gestured at the apartment, at myself. This is what's left. Emily set down her wine. Reached over and took my hand. What if you regret this? The question hung in the air between us. Then I'll live with it, I said. But at least it'll be my regret. My choice. Not his. Emily squeezed my hand. I'm worried about you. I know. I'm not saying what you did was wrong. I'm just saying, she paused, searching for words. I'm saying make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. Not because you're hurt. Not because you're angry. But because it's actually what you want. It's what I want, I said. But even as I said it, I wondered if I believed it. Emily stayed for 2 more hours. We drank wine. Talked about her work, her life, anything but mine. When she finally left, she hugged me tight at the door. Call me tomorrow, she said. After. Whatever happens. Call me. I promised I would. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my new bed in my new apartment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of downtown traffic and my own thoughts spiraling. Tomorrow they'd land. Tomorrow they'd see. I must have drifted off around 2 because I woke at 3:17 from a dream that felt more real than the waking world. I was walking through the house. But not the demolished version. The complete version. Every room intact. Every piece of furniture in place. Samuel was there. Not the 40-year-old man who'd betrayed me. The younger version. The one I'd met at a mutual friend's party 16 years ago. The one who'd made me laugh. The one I'd fallen in love with. Why are you doing this? He asked. I tried to answer but couldn't form words. I walked through rooms, touching walls that no longer existed. The kitchen. The living room. The bedroom. My mother appeared in the kitchen wearing that lavender dress. You were always so cold, Hazel, she said. Her voice was gentle but the words were knives. No wonder he left. I woke up gasping, tangled in sheets, heart pounding. 3:17 a.m. I got up, poured water with shaking hands, stood at the window looking out at Boston's sleeping skyline. Tomorrow they'd land. Tomorrow they'd see what I'd done. Tomorrow everything would change. I should have felt triumphant. Vindicated. Strong. Instead I felt hollow. I picked up my phone. Scrolled to Samuel's contact. My finger hovered over the call button. What would I even say? I demolished our house because you married someone else? I erased 12 years because you erased me first? I put the phone down. There was nothing left to say to him. To any of them. I climbed back into bed but didn't sleep. Just lay there watching the numbers on the clock change. 4 a.m. 5 a.m. 6 a.m. My phone buzzed at 6:30. A text from my father. Robert Monroe. The man who'd spent my entire childhood letting my mother make every decision. Who stayed quiet during every family conflict. Who never once took my side against her. The message was long. Longer than any text he'd ever sent me. Hazel, your mother told me about her conversation with June. I don't know what's happening between you and Samuel, but I want you to know. No matter what, you're still my daughter. I don't understand any of this. I don't know who's right or wrong. But I love you. Call me when you're ready. I read it 10 times. Then 20. Part of me wanted to call him immediately. To tell him everything. To hear him take my side for once in my life. But another part, the part that had been hurt too many times, disappointed too often, wondered if this was a trap. Was he gathering information to report back to my mother? Was this just another betrayal waiting to happen? I typed out 3 different responses and deleted them all. Finally, I just saved the message and set my phone down. Maybe later. Maybe after. Maybe never. I got up, showered, dressed in the black suit I'd worn to meet Tom Brennan. My power suit. My armor. I made coffee that I didn't drink. I checked my phone obsessively. Their flight was scheduled to land at 2:35 p.m. I'd already calculated the timeline. Customs. Baggage claim. 3 luxury SUVs. Samuel had posted photos of them yesterday with the caption, "Coming home in style." They'd arrive at the house around 4. And I'd be there, watching from across the street, watching them see what I'd done. I sat on my couch staring at the city, counting down the hours, and wondering if Emily was right, wondering if I'd regret this, wondering if the person I'd become in the past 8 days was someone I'd even recognize a year from now. But it was too late to wonder. The house was gone. The money was transferred. The revenge was set. All that was left was to watch it unfold. At 2:35 p.m. their flight landed at Logan. I tracked it on my phone from my car parked across the street from where the house used to be. The lot looked perfect. Fresh sod that had been laid with professional precision. Green. Uniform. Undisturbed. I'd even had a small decorative bench installed near the sidewalk yesterday. A touch I couldn't resist. Made the empty lot look intentional. Like it had always been this way. Like nothing had ever existed here. I was wearing my power suit. Black Armani. Red bottom heels. The outfit I wore when I closed major deals or presented to difficult clients. My armor. Coffee sat in the cup holder. Still hot. I'd stopped at the same shop where I'd met Tom Brennan 2 days ago. I checked my phone again. They'd be through customs by now. Collecting luggage. Finding their rental cars. Samuel had posted about the SUVs yesterday. 3 luxury vehicles. But expensive. Coming home in style. His caption had read. I wondered if Claire's father had paid for them. The afternoon was cool. October in Boston. The kind of weather that makes people post about fall leaves and pumpkin spice. Normal people. People whose lives weren't currently imploding. I waited. At 3:58 the first SUV turned onto the street. Then the second. Then the third. My heart rate didn't change. My hands didn't shake. I just watched. They pulled up to the curb, or rather to where they expected the driveway to be. The engines cut. Doors opened. Samuel emerged first from the middle vehicle. Suntanned. Relaxed. Wearing a linen shirt that probably cost $200. He stretched, said something to Clara that made her laugh. Claire stepped out next. Blonde hair in waves. White sundress. The ring on her left hand catching the afternoon sun. She looked happy. Carefree. Like someone who'd just returned from the best vacation of her life. My mother came next from the lead SUV. Designer sunglasses. Lavender scarf. The same shade she'd worn in the wedding photo. Then my father. Looking tired. Confused already even though he hadn't seen the lot yet. June emerged scrolling through her phone. Marcus started unloading luggage. Suitcases and duty-free bags and souvenirs from a trip that had celebrated my marriage ending. They were all smiling. Laughing. Talking over each other about the flight, the food, the memories they'd made. Until Samuel turned toward where the house should be. His body went rigid. The smile disappeared. He took 2 steps toward the lot and stopped. Just stopped. Claire noticed first. Babe. She was still holding a shopping bag, still half smiling. What's wrong? Samuel didn't answer. Couldn't answer. He was staring at the empty space like it was a puzzle his brain couldn't solve. Claire followed his gaze. Her smile faded. The shopping bag slipped from her fingers. Where's, she started. Stopped. Where's the house? My mother's voice cut through the confusion like a knife. Robert. Robert. She grabbed my father's arm, her voice climbing toward hysteria. Where is it? Where's the house? My father turned. His face went pale. June's phone clattered to the sidewalk. Marcus dropped 2 suitcases. For a moment no one moved. They just stood there on the sidewalk, surrounded by luggage and shopping bags, staring at pristine green grass and empty space where a $2 million home had stood 9 days ago. Samuel spun in a circle. Looked at the neighboring houses. The Kolskis' place to the left. The Petersons to the right. Both exactly where they'd always been. He looked at the mailbox. Still standing at the curb. The numbers clearly visible. The right address. What? His voice came out strangled. What the? That's when Tom Brennan's truck pulled up. He'd been driving past, saw the commotion and pulled over. Good man. Exactly the kind of timing I'd hoped for but hadn't counted on. Tom got out of his truck, approached cautiously. Can I help you folks? Samuel charged him. What did you do to my house? He was shouting now, veins bulging in his neck. Who are you? Tom held up his hands, genuinely confused. Whoa, buddy. I don't know what you're talking about. Pie house. Samuel pointed at the lot. There was a house here. Where is it? Tom glanced at the lot, then back at Samuel. I just bought this property yesterday. Wiggly. Clean title. Empty lot. I don't know what. Empty. Samuel's voice cracked. It wasn't empty. There was a house. My house. My home. Tom pulled out his phone, pulled up the listing photos. The beautiful empty lot. The fresh sod. The potential. See? This is what I bought. You got the wrong address or something. My mother had started hyperventilating. June was on her knees picking up her phone with shaking hands. Marcus just stood there, mouth open, looking between the lot and Samuel like he was watching a magic trick he couldn't figure out. That's when my mother saw me. I'd rolled down my window. Elbow resting on the frame. Coffee cup in hand. Just watching. Hazel. She shrieked it. Not like a name. Like an accusation. Like a curse. What did you do? Everyone turned. I took a slow sip of coffee. Set the cup down carefully. Opened my car door and stepped out. I dressed for this moment like I was presenting to a board of directors. Everything deliberate. Everything calculated. I walked toward them slowly. Not rushing. Not hesitating. 6 feet away I stopped. Close enough to see their faces clearly. Far enough to stay safe. Oh hey everyone, I said. My voice was pleasant. Casual. Like I was greeting them at a barbecue. How was Croatia? Did you get my text about handling everything? Samuel stared at me. His face cycled through expressions too fast to track. Confusion. Disbelief. Dawning horror. He took a step toward me. Clara grabbed his arm but he shook her off. You demolished our house? His voice cracked on the last word. I tilted my head slightly. Not our house, Samuel. My house. My business asset. Owned by my LZ. And technically I didn't demolish it myself. I contracted Westwood Demo and Excavation. Very professional crew. They finished ahead of schedule. You can't do that. His face was red now. Spit flying. That's illegal. I pulled out my phone. Opened the folder Nicole had prepared. Screenshots of property deeds. Purchase documents. The post-nuptial agreement he'd signed 5 years ago without reading. Actually, I said calmly, per Massachusetts property law and the terms of our post-nuptial agreement. You remember signing that, right? You were so busy on your phone that day. I can do whatever I want with my solely owned business assets. The house was purchased by my LLC 3 years before we got married. You never contributed to the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, or the renovations. Legally, you had zero claim to it. I turned to Clara for the first time. Really looked at her. She was pretty. Young. Fair. That sounds like a you problem, I said. But congratulations on your wedding. Beautiful photos. I especially loved the one of my mother wearing white to your ceremony. Very classy. Claire made a sound. Somewhere between a gasp and a sob. My mother stepped forward. Her face was twisted with rage and something else. Fear. Hazel Monroe, she said. Her voice shook. You will fix this right now. This is family property. We helped. Did you? I interrupted. Did you help? Because I have 12 years of receipts that say otherwise. Every renovation. Every repair. Every property tax payment. All mine. You helped by visiting for holidays and eating food I cooked and telling me I worked too much and wasn't a good enough wife. I'm your mother. And you went to his wedding. I pointed at Clara. While he was still married to me. You wore lavender. You smiled for photos. You toasted their future. So let's not pretend family loyalty means anything coming from you. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Marcus found his voice. Hazel. Come on. This is insane. You can't just. I already did, Marcus. My voice went cold. And just so we're clear, that college tuition I paid? Consider it repaid with interest in the form of this valuable life lesson. Don't betray the person who's been holding your life together. June was crying now. Mascara running. We didn't know. That he was going to text me I was dead to him? That I should be gone when you got back. I pulled up the message. Showed it to them. He sent this from the family group chat. The one I wasn't in anymore. You all saw it. You all knew. No one spoke. Guilty silence. Samuel's face had gone from red to white. The cars, he whispered. The accounts. All mine, I said. Company property repossessed. Joint accounts liquidated. You'll find approximately $3,400 in your personal checking. Your actual contribution to our marriage. I left it untouched. Fair is fair. Clara finally found her voice. You're insane. You're Careful, I warned. Clara's mouth snapped shut. But the rage in her eyes didn't dim. It intensified. My mother stepped forward then, drawing herself up to her full height. The way she always did when she was about to deploy the nuclear option. Family guilt. Hazel Monroe. Her voice shook with fury. You will fix this right now. This is family property. We helped with renovations. We contributed. Did you? I interrupted, tilting my head. Studying her like I was examining a stranger. Because I have 12 years of receipts that say otherwise. Every renovation. Every repair. Every property tax payment. All mine. Documented. Both. Paid from my business accounts. I took a step closer. You helped by what, exactly? Visiting for holidays. Eating food I cooked. Criticizing my career choices. Telling me I worked too much. That I wasn't feminine enough. That I didn't know how to keep a man happy. My mother stepped back. Actually stepped back like I'd physically pushed her. I'm your mother. And you went to his wedding. I pointed at Clara without looking at her. To her. While he was still married to me. You wore lavender. The same color you wore to my wedding. You smiled for photos. You toasted their future. You celebrated the end of my marriage like it was a family vacation. My voice dropped lower. Colder. So let's not pretend family loyalty means anything coming from you. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father looked like he wanted to disappear into the sidewalk. June had stopped crying, her face frozen in shock. Marcus stood with his hands clenched at his sides, jaw working. This is insane, Marcus finally said. His voice cracked. Hazel, you can't. The cars. Repossessed, I said simply. Company property. My company. Both the Audi Samuel loved and the Tesla I barely drove are currently in a secure facility. You're welcome to buy them back at fair market value if you'd like. Marcus's face went pale. The bank accounts. I liquidated our joint accounts yesterday. Took my money. Every dollar I deposited over 12 years. I left Samuel exactly what he contributed. I paused. $3,400. Fair is fair. You can't be serious. Marcus was shouting now. That's theft. That's legal, I corrected. Per our postnuptial agreement in Massachusetts law. But I'm glad you're so concerned about theft, Marcus. Let's talk about theft. I turned to face him fully. The college tuition I paid when mom and dad couldn't afford it? $48,000. The rent I covered for 6 months when you lost your job? $7,200. The car loan I co-signed that you defaulted on so I ended up paying? $12,000. Should I keep going? Marcus opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. Consider it all repaid, I said quietly. With interest. In the form of this valuable life lesson. Don't betray the person who's been holding your life together. He turned away. Actually turned his back on me. June was still on her knees, phone in her shaking hands. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Tom Brennan had backed away slowly, climbed into his truck and driven off. Smart man. Then Clara found her voice again. You're a bitch. He screamed it. Full volume. Her pretty face twisted into something ugly and raw. All the soft sweetness from the wedding photos was gone. This was real Claire. You're a vindictive, cruel, pathetic. I'm an architect, I said calmly. There's a difference. I build things. I also unbuild them when necessary. Controlled demolition. It's all about precision. Clara lunged toward me. Samuel grabbed her arm, pulled her back. Clara, don't. How are we supposed to afford? She started, then caught herself. Too late. I smiled. Afford what, Clara? I thought you came from money? Isn't your father worth millions? Doesn't he own all those car dealerships? Her face flushed red. Or, I looked at Samuel now. Did you lie to her, Samuel? Tell her I had money that would be yours in a divorce? Tell her you owned half of everything. Samuel's expression shifted. Confusion replacing anger. What is she talking about? He asked Clara. Nothing, Clara said quickly. She's just. Or maybe, I continued, Clara lied to you. About her trust fund. About her family's money. About what she could offer you once you finally got rid of the wife who was funding your life. I let that hang in the air. The silence was exquisite. Samuel looked at Clara. Clara looked at the ground. June looked between them like she was watching a tennis match. My mother's mouth had formed a perfect O of shock. You deserve each other, I said simply. Samuel's face had cycled through every emotion possible and landed on white-lipped fury. Where are we supposed to go, Hazel? Where? I shrugged. Maybe Clara's place? Oh wait, I looked at her. You live with your parents, don't you? 28 years old and still in your childhood bedroom. How romantic. I'm sure they'd love to host your new husband. Clara made a strangled sound. I turned toward my car then stopped. One more thing. Oh, and Samuel. I filed for divorce on Monday. You'll be served at your office tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. sharp. My attorney is Nicole Ferrara. You should look her up. She's never lost a case. You can't do this. Samuel shouted. I'll sue you. I'll take you for everything. I pulled out my phone one last time. Found the audio file I'd been saving for this exact moment. And just so we're all clear about who the victim is here. I hit play. Samuel's voice filled the street. Tinny through my phone speaker but unmistakable. Don't worry, babe, once I get the money from the house we can leave sooner. She'll never know until it's too late. Clara's response. Light. Carefree. You're terrible. But I love it. I love you. This time next year we'll be in our place in Miami. She'll still be working herself to death and we'll be living our actual lives. I watched their faces while it played. In shock. Mouth open. Eyes wide. My father's confusion turning to understanding, turning to something that looked like shame. My mother's horror. Hand over her mouth. Marcus's disgust. It's Samuel. Finally. And Samuel's terror. Because he knew what was coming. I stopped the recording. He tried to forge my signature on a second mortgage application 6 months ago, I said quietly. Calmly. Tried to steal equity from my house, the one owned by my LLC, to fund your new life together. I looked at Clara. That's fraud, Clara. That's criminal. And I have evidence of all of it. The forged documents. The emails between you two planning how to access my money. All of it. Samuel's legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard on the curb, head in his hands. Clara stood frozen, her face cycling between red and white. So when you sue me, I looked at Samuel. Make sure your attorney knows about that. Nicole will be happy to add it to the divorce filing. Criminal fraud tends to affect asset division. Just FYI. I opened my car door. Wait, my father said. His voice was hoarse. Hazel, wait. I paused. Looked at him. He looked old. Tired. Said, I didn't know, he said quietly. About the text. About what Samuel said. Your mother told me they'd separated. That it was mutual. That you'd agreed. I agreed to nothing, I said. But you knew that, didn't you? Deep down. He didn't answer. I got in my car. Started the engine. Rolled down the window one last time. Enjoy finding somewhere to sleep tonight, I said. I hear the Holiday Inn on Route 9 has vacancies. I pulled away slowly. In my rearview mirror, I watched 7 people standing on an empty lot surrounded by luggage and shattered assumptions. Samuel was still sitting on the curb, head in his hands. Claire was crying now. Ugly crying. My mother was yelling at my father about something. June was on her phone, probably trying to find a hotel. Marcus had his arms crossed, staring at the empty lot like he still couldn't believe it was real. And my father just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I drove 3 blocks before I had to pull over. My hands were shaking. Not from fear or regret. From adrenaline. From the pure, undiluted satisfaction of watching them realize what they'd lost. What they'd thrown away. What they'd underestimated. I sat there for 10 minutes, breathing slowly, letting the shaking subside. My phone started buzzing. Calls. Texts. Dozens of them. I turned it off. Drove back to my apartment in silence. When I got home, I poured a glass of wine, stood at my window and looked out at the city lights. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. The house was gone. The revenge was complete. They'd seen what I'd done. And I felt empty. Not triumphant. Not victorious. Just empty. Like I'd torn down the house but couldn't figure out what to build in its place. I called Emily. She answered on the first ring. How did it go? I didn't answer right away. Hazel, she said. Are you okay? I don't know, I said finally. I did everything I planned. Everything went exactly how I wanted. But I don't know if I'm okay. Emily was quiet for a moment. Then, come over. Right now. Don't argue. I went. Emily lived in a brownstone in the South End, 3rd floor, with plants on every surface and art on every wall. The kind of home that felt lived in. I knocked. She opened the door immediately, took one look at my face and pulled me inside. Sit, she said, guiding me to her couch. I'm making tea. Don't argue. I sat. She disappeared into the kitchen. I heard water running, the kettle clicking on, cabinets opening and closing. I stared at a painting on her wall. Struck. Blues and grays swirling together. I'd always liked it but never really looked at it before. Emily returned with 2 mugs. Sat beside me. Didn't say anything. Just waited. I did it, I said finally. Everything I planned. It went exactly how I wanted. But I feel empty. The words came out quiet. Broken. I thought I'd feel vindicated. Triumphant. Instead I just feel, I stopped. Started again. I tore down the house. I got my revenge. I watched them realize what they'd lost. And now I don't know what to do with any of it. Emily set down her tea. Put her arm around my shoulders. You did something irreversible, she said gently. That's a lot to process. I don't regret it, I said quickly. I don't. They deserved it. But revenge doesn't fill the hole it creates. I nodded. We sat in silence for a long time. What happens now? Emily asked. I don't know. That night back in my apartment my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 63 missed calls by midnight. Hundreds of texts. My mother, you've destroyed this family. I hope you're proud. June, I can't believe you did this. You're cruel. You're vindictive. I don't know who you are anymore. Marcus, I hope you're happy now. I hope it was worth it. Samuel, you'll regret this. Well, Sue, you'll lose everything. Clara, you're a pathetic old woman who couldn't keep her husband. Enjoy dying alone. Even people I barely knew were messaging. Aunt Lorraine, who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. Your mother is devastated. How could you be so selfish? Cousins, old family friends, people coming out of the woodwork to tell me what a terrible person I was. I blocked them all. Every number except my father's. His message sat at the top of my inbox, unread. I poured wine with shaking hands. Stood at my window. Looked out at the city lights and wondered if this was what victory was supposed to feel like. I didn't read my father's message that night. Or the next day. I let it sit there unopened while I threw myself into work. The Meridian Tower project needed final approvals. I had 3 client presentations scheduled. My firm was busier than it had ever been and I used that as an excuse not to think. Not to feel. Not to process what I'd done. But on the 3rd day, sitting in my office at 2 in the morning because I couldn't sleep, I finally opened it. Hazel, I'm staying at a hotel. Your mother won't speak to me because I said what you did was understandable, even if it was extreme. June won't return my calls. Marcus is furious. I don't know how to fix this family. But I want you to know, I'm proud of you. For standing up for yourself. For not letting them walk all over you. I should have done more to protect you growing up. I failed you. And I'm sorry. If you want to talk, I'm here. Dad. I read it 5 times before I could breathe properly. Then I called him. He answered on the 2nd ring. Hazel. Can we meet? I asked. Tomorrow. Yes. Anywhere. Name the place. We met at a coffee shop in Cambridge the next afternoon. Neutral territory. Away from memories. My father looked older than I remembered. Gray hair thinner. Lines deeper around his eyes. He was wearing jeans and a sweater I'd never seen before. Not the clothes my mother usually picked out for him. He stood when he saw me. Hugged me tight. We sat. Ordered coffee. Didn't speak for a moment. Your mother is threatening divorce, he said finally. His voice was quiet, resigned. Because I won't condemn you. Dad, I don't want to ruin your marriage. You didn't ruin anything, honey. He looked at me directly. I'm finally seeing clearly what's been broken for years. Maybe decades. Your mother has always needed someone to blame. Someone to control. And I let her. I let her criticize you. I let her favor June. I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. You're speaking up now. He smiled sadly. 30 years too late. We talked for 2 hours. About my childhood. About how I'd always felt like I was trying to earn approval that never came. About how my mother's criticism had shaped me into someone who worked constantly, trying to prove I was good enough. About June. How she'd always been the favorite because she was easier. More compliant. Less threatening. About Marcus. How I'd stepped into the role of provider because someone had to. I can't fix the past, my father said finally. But I'd like to be part of your future. If you'll let me. I reached across the table. Squeezed his hand. I'd like that, I said. It wasn't forgiveness. Not entirely. But it was a beginning. 6 months passed. The lot where my house had stood became the Monroe Heights development. 8 luxury townhouses. My design. My vision. The project attracted attention. Architecture magazines featured it. Industry publications interviewed me about the concept. Building modern luxury on historic lots, honoring the past while creating something new. I didn't tell them the full story. Just the professional version. My firm's client list doubled. Then tripled. I hired 3 new architects, including a young woman named Sarah Chin who reminded me of myself at 25. Brilliant. Driven. Hungry to prove herself. I mentored her the way no one had mentored me. Taught her to negotiate. To value her work. To never let anyone make her feel small. Emily and I had coffee every Sunday. She never said, I told you so, but she did say, I'm glad you're okay more often than necessary. My father and I had dinner once a month. He'd separated from my mother officially in January. Moved into a small apartment in Somerville with a view of the river. He seemed lighter. Younger somehow. Like he'd been carrying weight for decades and finally set it down. We didn't talk about June or Marcus. That bridge was burned and would stay burned. But we talked about everything else. His dreams of traveling. My plans to open a second office in New York. The life he was building in his 70s. The life I was building in my 40s. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong. Other days I woke up from dreams about the house and felt hollow. But the hollow days became less frequent. And the strong days became my foundation. On a Tuesday evening in late April, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. Samuel. I've had time to think. We made mistakes. Can we talk? I stared at those words for exactly 3 seconds. Thought about the photo he'd sent from Croatia. The caption that called me dead. The house he'd tried to steal from. The 12 years I'd given him while he planned his exit. Thought about the woman I used to be. The one who would have read that message and felt hope. Who would have called him back. Who would have believed we made mistakes, meant something other than, I want something from you. That woman was gone. I typed, sorry. Once it's old, it's dead to me. Funny how that works. Then I blocked the number. I walked to my window. Looked out at the Boston skyline. At the buildings I'd helped design. At the city I'd claimed as mine. The demolition hadn't just been about destroying a house. It had been about destroying the version of myself who accepted betrayal. Who made excuses for people who didn't deserve them. Who built a life for others while neglecting to build one for herself. That woman was dead. In her place was someone stronger. Harder in some ways. More careful with trust. But also more honest about what I wanted. More willing to walk away from what didn't serve me. More certain that being alone was better than being with people who made me feel alone. They'd wanted me gone. I'd made sure there was nothing left for them to come back to. And in the empty space where that life used to be, I'd built something better. Something that was entirely, permanently mine. I poured wine. Toasted my reflection in the window. To new foundations. To controlled demolitions. To the life I built alone and the peace I found in its silence.